Hey guys, it's Ty the Dog Guy here, and I want to talk about dominance. I think dominance is one of the least understood, most confused things when we're talking about dog behavior, dog training, things like that. It's one of the most blamed things. Oftentimes I hear people say, oh, my dog's being disobedient, he's being very dominant, or he's being alpha. I know I need to be alpha, things like that. And so I wanted to talk about that today and kind of dispel some myths and things like that. And so, does dominance exist? Absolutely, it does. There's, especially amongst dogs, you'll see, one dog is vying for dominance against other dogs and things like that. That does happen. You'll see a dog mount another dog and hump the dog, or you'll see a dog, front his chest and really try to push another dog around, things like that. And so it absolutely does exist. Is it one of the main reasons that dogs are disobedient to their owners? Usually not. In fact, that's where I hear it the most. Sorry, I'm looking off to notes on my whiteboard here. Usually not. Usually what we see when a dog is being dominant is the dog simply is untrained. In fact, people call it dominance, people call it stubbornness. In order for a dog to be stubborn, or in order for a dog to be disobedient because of dominance, what has to happen is the dog has to have complete understanding of what that command is, what that behavior is, and then opt not to do it. And so oftentimes when people say my dog isn't coming when called because he's stubborn, it's not stubbornness. The dog simply hasn't been trained very well. And people say, no, he understands it because he comes, usually when we're at home. Well, yeah, in that context he does. But in the context where now you've added distractions and you're out at a park and there's other dogs and blah, 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 it's not dominance. It's just distraction training that hasn't been done. Or, my dog is, he knows what stay means. He just doesn't do it. Somebody rang the doorbell and he won't stay, when I ask him to. Again, that's not a dominance behavior. It's not the dog saying, aha, I'm going to do this wrong. It's simply you haven't trained the dog very well with distractions. So like I say, in order for a dog to be disobedient because of stubbornness or because of dominance, the dog has to have complete understanding. And that's rare. Even dogs that go through training aren't perfect with, this great understanding. And so most of the time when dogs are being disobedient, it's a simple case of they're not clear. It hasn't been communicated clearly what's wanted, number one. Or number two, they don't have the focus. Focus hasn't been taught. And so the dog's focus is way over here, and the owner's giving commands over here. And the dog is just, he doesn't have, the focus isn't there, and so the command doesn't get done. So in any case, most of the time dominance doesn't enter into the equation, almost never. And so the question comes up, well, how do I get dominance over my dog? Well, don't be worried in terms of that. Don't be worried in terms of how to be dominant over your dog. Instead, focus on how to be a good leader to your dog. A good leader is somebody with compassion, with empathy. A good leader is somebody who is very, one thing I've always said, and I'm not sure if this is a very good definition or not, but it makes sense to me, is the definition of leadership is setting very clear expectations and following through. That's what leadership is. A lot of folks, we hear this from some of our women clients. Well, I can't be dominant to my dog because I'm small or my voice isn't very deep. It's not about that. It's not about deep voices. It's not about shouting. It's not about grabbing your dog and forcing them to the floor. None of that. Well, in fact, that could get you dominance, but you're not looking for dominance. Dominance has kind of a very, almost a negative connotation. It's like, I'm the boss, you do what I say. And we don't want our relationship with our dogs to be that way. The relationship should be healthy leadership. Healthy leadership, like I say, is setting a clear expectation and following through. It's not setting murky expectation. It's not being bigger, tougher, stronger. It's setting a clear expectation and following through. That's what leadership is. And so oftentimes you'll see things about, here's how you get dominance with your dog. Hold them on the floor. Don't do that. That's just a good way to get bit in the face, and it's a really good way to confuse your dog. It's not a clear expectation. So don't do that. Don't do the alpha rolls. Don't pin your dog on the ground. It's not a good thing. Lower than that, I hear things like you need to eat before your dog. You need to make sure you're the one that goes through the doorway first. You need to make sure the dog's never allowed on the couch or the furniture. Now, I always kind of tell people that these are half-truths, meaning for some dogs, they're very important. So I've trained a lot of dogs, for example, that if they're allowed on the couch, they see themselves in the hierarchy in a different space and they start getting aggressive and they start having behavior problems. Whereas if they're not on the couch, it's not a problem. So again, it's a half-truth because for some dogs, it's totally meaningless. Some dogs, they're on the couch and they're not trying to challenge you because they're on the couch. They're not trying to challenge you because they're on the bed. They just want a comfortable spot. Whereas some dogs do equate height with some degree of hierarchy. And so there are some dogs that, really shouldn't be allowed on the couch or the bed. So again, it's kind of a half-truth. Eating first, I think that one's more of a crock than anything. Like, it's not going to help you to eat. It's not going to hurt you. And so if you want to do it, great, but it's not like going to push the needle a lot. What else? Going outdoors first is another half-truth. There's some dogs where that's a good thing. If they go out the door first, their mind's in the clouds and you're losing focus and they're all over the place mentally and emotionally. And other dogs is not a big deal. And so again, there's certain things that you want to watch out because if they're true for your dog, they're just supplementary. They're supplementary in the sense that, don't let your dog on the couch, but that's like 10%. 90% is working on good obedience and structure and rules and discipline and things like that. And so these little tricks of eating first or not allowing the dog on the couch or going through the doorway first aren't bad. They're not wrong. They're just not all the way right. So like I say, good leadership is about setting expectations and following through. A lot of that comes back to obedience, structure, how the day rolls, how you act when you're on a leash, how you act when somebody rings the doorbell, how you act when we're eating dinner, all the sorts of stuff like that. That's really where leadership comes in, is you setting expectations for how those things need to go and following through. So don't worry about being your dog's alpha. Don't worry about finding dominance. Worry about how to communicate really well and follow through on that communication, because that is going to get you healthy leadership more than any deep voice, more than any sternness, more than any yelling, more than any dominant tough guy behavior will ever do. All you got to do is communicate very clearly and follow through.